I'm Jessica Condit, senior reporter for Engadget.com, and I'm with Johnny Galvatron. Is that how I say it?
Yeah.
Is that the last?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. That's a beautiful last name.
Thank you.
So, we're talking about this new game, The Artful Escape of Francis Vendetti. This caught my eye because it's so neon. It's just like lasers and but paper cutouts, pastels, and then this whole background of multi-dimensional music, almost David Bowie kind of stuff going on here. So please, Johnny, just tell us about The Artful Escape of Francis Vendetti.
Well, it's about a young musician. His name's Francis Vendetti. He's kind of living in the shadow of this culturally megalithic uncle who's kind of like a Bob Dylan character. And his first show's coming up and he's got to decide how he's going to present himself at that show. And he realizes that to stand by himself artistically, he needs to reinvent himself and step away from that persona. And after meeting with a few people in his village, his hometown of Calypso, Colorado, he goes on this multi-dimensional adventure to discover who he isn't and discover what thoughts and what ideas are behind his music and how he can live those out.
Okay. And I read your bio, and it seems you're like a superstar or something. That's what I got from the bio. You're a super rock star.
The bio reads well. I'm
It
definitely
does.
not a superstar, but I've toured around and got a lot of rock and roll stories and did a lot of fun rock and roll things.
Awesome. And you have the rock and roll jacket to go with it, so that works out pretty well.
It's been with me for a long time.
Very good. But yeah, talk about your past a little bit, because you're musically inclined, very much so, and this game focuses heavily on music. So what's your history in the industry, and how does that translate into a video game?
Well, I studied 3D computer animation and game development at uni, and then I think about a week after I graduated, I got quite a large record deal with Warner Brothers, and then just didn't go home for 4 years. And did a lot of crazy stuff. Got to play with a lot of great bands and tour the world and play festivals and be on TV game shows, which was great. And then fell back into game development. So I guess you learn a lot very quickly when you do something like that. You're a young guy and you go out and then suddenly you're in the thick of the industry. And it's very different than what you expect. I think when you get a record deal like that and you start to play stadiums and do all this fun stuff, you feel like you're entering a world of fantasy, and you feel like those sort of record deals will unlock these magical doors of worlds of wonder that you'll get to explore that you imagine when you're young. And then you realize very quickly that's not what it is, and you live in a hotel room with 6 really smelly dudes. And I guess The Artful Escape of Francis Vendetti is informed a lot by my teenage imaginings of what the music industry would be.
Because when I think of a rock star, I'll think of Ziggy Stardust. I'll think of that fantasy too, and that's very much what's going on here. It looks like, and I don't quite know how the character gets into the multi-dimensional realm. I don't know why he's fighting tentacly aliens.
He's not fighting. There's no fighting.
Oh, no fighting.
Yeah, I just feel like he jams with creatures and he tries to communicate with them. I felt like in a game which is primarily about a young musician trying to find himself and create his stage persona, he didn't really need to kill anyone.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And it could be done through other means.
Yeah, I mean, it's a video game. We're used to just enemies, you kill them, that's how you play. But this is different. I love that.
Yeah, well, I'm not anti-violence in video games.
Sure.
It's a bit of a challenge to go in the other direction, and I think your gameplay should always be informed by your story.
Music itself is a huge part of the game. There's going to be... people can create their own songs almost, it seems like. Can you talk about that creation?
Yeah, well, as you move through the world, there's obviously lots of different alien creatures, and you have a field recorder. And you can record little samples of the various animalia, and then they go into a sample bank. And you've seen we've got a little demo up online of how that system works. And it's not a objective-based system, but I hope you'll agree, it's really fun to play with. It's fun to arrange music, and it's fun to, bring it up and bring it down. And I think in a gameplay mechanic sense, it's fun, but it's a different kind of fun than shooting or rhythm-based games. It's like it's fun to go and play airsoft with your friends, but it's also fun to jam with your friends and have that experience. And I think that's more of the feeling we're going for with gameplay. Obviously, we have technical, swifter parts of gameplay, but I like simpler, grander gameplay sometimes, and that's what we're trying to do with that sample system.
I love narrative-based games myself, especially like point-and-click adventures like this.
Yeah, you're a Kentucky Route Zero fan, aren't you?
I am, absolutely. So, yeah, and you saw I just wrote about them.
Yeah, I read your article. It's I cannot wait for the 4th installment. That game is it definitely opened my eyes a lot.
Good, yeah. And if this is in any way inspired by games like that, or if it's in the same vein, that's very exciting for me in particular. One
of the things I loved about Kentucky Route Zero was that the dialogue choices weren't necessarily story-based. They were just informing the character. I really loved that.
Do you do something similar in Artful Escape?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole game is about informing your character. The whole game is about coming up with the persona of Francis and his history. Like, there's parts of the level where you get to come up with his backstory and his image, and then it relates to hype as well. The way you enter the scene, the way you enter various levels is actually part of the gameplay mechanic. How you... I wanted to have a really awesome mechanic on making an entrance, which I can't wait to show people. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And the game is very theatrical. It's grand, I guess. Yeah, it's very theatrical. And the other main developer, he worked with like Baz Luhrmann on Moulin Rouge and things like that. So is that an aesthetic of the game, like this kind of grand musical Broadway-ish kind of thing?
Because I love the grandiose. I read this article once that people who listen to classical music listen to their music for the same reason that people love metal, which is like a love of the grandiose. And I think I've always really got into that. And I think one of the things we're really aiming for with the Artful Escape is these moments of crescendo, which you can only really achieve in video games, where you get gameplay, music, story, cinematography. If you can grab them all and hit them all at the right point, video games, nothing can beat them. And working with Josh has been really amazing. Josh Abrahams, he works quite closely with Baz on Moulin Rouge, and he's won like 3 ARIA awards. They're like our Grammys. And he's had gold records, platinum records, and he has the best synthesizer library I've ever seen in my life. And I weep openly before it. But his musical knowledge is really fantastic, and he really can get those moments of grandeur. And he does, he has written for Broadway stuff, he has written for film, and it's been amazingly fun because the sample player you played is like micro songwriting. You have to make 2 bars of a song in the same key, and it's based around recording animals. So there's tracks on there of just me and Josh in the studio just cawing like birds and then tripping them up and turning them into music. Really, it's a delight to work with him, and it's a delight to write that way.
We're talking about this game. It's not out yet. We should probably say that.
It's not made yet.
It's not made yet. That's where we're going. So you have a Kickstarter coming up. When is that launching? And
it's the 1st of March. It'll be because of weird time differences. I think it'll be launching about 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Australia and about 7 o'clock in the evening on the day before.
So what are your biggest stressors right now in terms of setting up a Kickstarter? Because a lot of people don't realize how much work actually goes into that.
Well, there's so much artwork you've got to do, and you've got to try and measure yourself against. Obviously, we're a tiny little team from Melbourne. You've got to try and measure yourself against these people asking for $1 million, with people who have made games that are in everyone's psyche. So, but you should measure yourself against those people. I guess the indie game market is neck and neck with AAA, and we're nominated for the same awards, we're put in the same categories. So it's about pushing yourself to be as good as these industry veterans who are looking for $1 million.
And you can do it. That's the thing. That's one of the coolest things about crowdfunding and this internet outreach. I mean, you're in Melbourne. I'm in the US right now, and we're talking, which is incredible in itself. But now you can collect money to make a dream game, and that's where our industry is, and I think that's very exciting.
It is. It's what's absolutely incredible about indie gaming, and the whole business plan of how it works and crowdfunding is really incredible. It's definitely better than the music industry.
Really quick to kind of wrap up here. You're based in Melbourne. You're a trained video game developer. How is the indie scene out in Australia? Are you seeing a lot of movement? Are there a lot of studios? Are there people talking about making games out there?
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely it's a growing industry everywhere, and I think it reminds me a lot of grunge music, actually. And I know some people cringe at the rock and roll indie game comparison, so I'll try and explain it. But there was this moment in time, obviously, with grunge and garage where people were taking crappy equipment and they weren't necessarily that well trained, but you can turn, youth angst into something incredible, and you just need to look at the grunge movement to see that it's urgent and there's something to say, even if it's not technically brilliant. And indie gaming is very much like that now. It's bedroom. It's kids making stuff in their bedroom, and maybe it doesn't look the best. Maybe it's a little rough around the corners, but there's urgency there, and there's great ideas.
Nice. That's good. That's a great answer. You're just a kid in your bedroom working on a dream.
Exactly. Just trying to upset mum and dad.
Yeah, life's goals. Yeah, that's how I do it too. That's fine. Thank you very much, Johnny, for talking with us about The Artful Escape. So March 1st, Kickstarter.
March 1st.
When it goes
Please
live.
Go and check it out and let your friends know. And thank you. Thank you for watching.